So the resurrections of the dead, first of all. 1 Samuel 2 verse 6 says, Jehovah puts to death and makes alive. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. So we have that one soul goes to Sheol. Also, it will be raised up from Sheol, that Jehovah can do that. And that is recorded in the book of 1 Samuel. And we see this throughout the Tanakh referenced. Even Job referenced this event as happening. He said, if only you would hide me in Sheol, conceal me until your wrath turns away. Set for me a law and remember me. If a man dies, would he live again? All the days of my struggle I wait till my change comes. So Job references a man dying and a man living again, and interestingly he refers to it as his change, which is what Shaul or Paul says when he says, we shall not all die, but we shall all be changed. In Psalm 17 verse 15 it says, as for me, let me see your face in righteousness. I am satisfied to see your appearance when I awake. Okay, so this again can be seen to refer to the dead awakening idiomatically, the dead being reborn in a spiritual body and seeing Yeshua, as it will be. Romans 8:19-23 says, for the intense longing of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of Elohim. Okay, and that term there, which is the eon of Elohim, that refers to those who are creations of Elohim. We will see a different term later on in the same passage, the teknon of Elohim, the children of Elohim. Sons of Elohim are different in Scripture. It can be used figuratively to speak of those who follow Yehovah's words, who believe Yehovah and are reborn of the word. They are sons of Elohim in a figurative sense. But Adam, being a son of Elohim, he is a direct creation. We see the angels as sons of Elohim, and we see Scripture record that they were there when Yehovah brought things forth. So when a son of Elohim is mentioned, a literal son of Elohim, it is those that Elohim has created. And when we are reborn, or rather when we are born again of the Spirit, when we are given spiritual bodies, we will be sons of Elohim in the sense that we will be direct creations of Elohim. So the creation eagerly awaits for the revealing of the sons of Elohim, because the creation, which is in bondage to corruption at the moment, will be set at liberty at that time. And that's what this passage is describing. So when the sons of Elohim are revealed, when we get our spiritual bodies in that resurrection, that's what the creation is waiting for. It says, for the creation was subjected to futility, not from choice, but because of him who subjected it in anticipation. So unlike Adam, who made the choice to sin and knew that that would entail death upon him, the creation had no such choice. It was subjected to it because of him who subjected it. In other words, Adam. That the creation itself also shall be delivered from the bondage to corruption into the esteemed freedom of the children of Elohim. So that's a different word that is used there, because it's describing something which is different. The teknon of Elohim and the huyon of Elohim are different. hence different words used in the same passage. The Hebrew word for sons is the same word as you would use for children. Any mixed group of people is referred to by the masculine term. So you would say sons, and that could mean what we would term as children. But the distinction is drawn here because what the creation is not awaiting, it's not awaiting the children of Elohim, those who are born of Elohim. It is awaiting those who are born again of the Spirit in spiritual bodies at Yeshua's coming. And not only so, but even we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit, we ourselves also groan within ourselves, eagerly waiting for the adoption, the redemption of our body. Mark 12 verse 18 says, "And Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to him, and they asked him, saying," and then if we go on to verses 24 to 27, "And Yeshua, in answering them, said to them, Is this not why you go astray, because you do not know the Scriptures, nor the power of Elohim? For when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels in the heavens. And concerning the dead, that they rise, have you not read in the book of Moshe at the bush how Elohim spoke to him, saying, I am Elohim of Abraham, and the Elohim of Yitzchak, and the Elohim of Yaakov?" So the Sadducees, who believe that there is no resurrection, they asked him a question about somebody who had married 7 people, according to what the Torah says, about if someone has not borne you children, then your brother will, their brother rather, will marry you so that their name be continued. And they said, well, what if that happens 7 times? Whose wife will she be in the resurrection? And Yeshua says, he answers to them plainly, because Yeshua presumably knows that their question is questioning this doctrine of the resurrection. He says, look, concerning the dead that they rise again, does Elohim himself not say that he is not the Elohim of the dead, but rather of the living? So that is who Elohim is, the Elohim of the living, not of the dead. The Sadducees' doctrine would have it, if there is no resurrection, the Elohim is the Elohim of those who have died. He is not the Elohim of the dead, but Elohim of the living. You then go greatly astray. Isaiah 25, 8-9 says, He shall swallow up death forever, and the Master Yehovah shall wipe away tears from all faces, and take away the reproach of his people from all the earth, for Yehovah has spoken. And it shall be said in that day, See, this is our Elohim. We have waited for him, and he saves us. This is Yehovah. We have waited for him. Let us be glad and rejoice in his deliverance. And that deliverance is the deliverance from death. That is Yehovah swallowing up death and delivering us from it. In that day we will say, This is our Elohim. We've waited for him, and see, this is him, he who saves us from death and gives us deliverance. Isaiah 26 verse 19 says, Let your dead live, together with my dead body let them arise. Awake and sing, you who dwell in the dust. For your dew is a dew of light, and let the earth give birth to the departed spirits. So Isaiah here speaks of the dead awakening, of the departed spirits returning, the earth giving birth to them. Figuratively here, the dead in Messiah will meet Messiah in the air. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verses 13-17 it says, Now brothers, we do not wish you to be ignorant concerning those who have fallen asleep, lest you be sad as others who have no expectation. For if we believe that Yeshua died and rose again, so also Elohim shall bring with him those who sleep in Yeshua. For we say, this we say to you by the word of the Master, that we, the living who are left over at the coming of the Master, shall in no way go before those who are asleep. Because the Master himself shall come down from heaven with a shout, with the voice of chief angels, and with the trumpet of Elohim, and the dead in Messiah shall rise first. And as we read in the psalm before, I will awake and see your face. They will meet Messiah in the air. Then we, the living who are left over, shall be caught away together with them in the clouds to meet the Master in the air. And so we shall always be with the Master. 2 Corinthians 5:1-2 says, For we know that if the tent of our earthly house is destroyed, we have a building from Elohim, a house not made with hands, everlasting in the heavens. For indeed in this we groan, longing to put on our dwelling, which is from heaven. So Paul says here that if our body, our physical body dies, then we have a house in the heavens that we will put on. Of course, speaking of the resurrection. So when the resurrection takes place, the dead in Messiah will meet him in the clouds first, and they will be given spiritual bodies, as we will see. And those who are left living at his coming, they will be changed. They will be reborn, or born again, as the scriptures say, of the Spirit. They will put on a spiritual body. In 1 Corinthians 15:12-23 it says, And if Messiah is proclaimed that he has been raised from the dead, how do some among you say there is no resurrection of the dead? And if there is no resurrection of the dead, the Messiah has not been raised. And if Messiah has not been raised, then our proclaiming is empty, and your belief also empty. And we have also found false witnesses of Elohim, because we have witnessed of Elohim that he raised up Messiah, whom he did not raise up, if then the dead are not raised. For if the dead are not raised, then neither Messiah has been raised. And if Messiah has not been raised, your belief is to no purpose. You are still in your sins. So what Paul is saying here is that if there's no resurrection of the dead, then Messiah hasn't been raised. Why? Because as happened to Messiah will happen to us. His soul went to Sheol and was raised from the dead, and he was the first fruits of the resurrection of the dead. And we also have that expectation of that salvation, the deliverance from death, when we will be raised from the dead. We will meet Messiah in the air, and we will be changed. We will be given spiritual bodies, as 1 Corinthians 15 proceeds to say later in the chapter. Verse 18 says, Then also those who have fallen asleep in Messiah have perished. If in this life only we have expectation in Messiah, we are of all men the most wretched. But now Messiah has been raised from the dead, and has become the firstfruits of those having fallen asleep. For since death is through a man, resurrection of the dead is also through a man. For as all die in Adam, so also all shall be made alive in Mashiach. And each in his own order, Messiah the firstfruits, and then those who are of Messiah at his coming. John 3:3-10 says, Yeshua answered and said to him, Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born from above, he is unable to see the kingdom of Elohim. So remember that, unless one is born from above, he's unable to see the kingdom of Elohim. Nicodemus said to him, How is a man able to be born when he is old? Is he able to enter into his mother's womb a second time and to be born? Yeshua answered, Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born of water and the Spirit, he is unable to enter into the kingdom of Elohim. So Yeshua says here, you have to be born again. You have to be born of water. You also have to be born of the Spirit. A lot of the time people will talk about born again Christians as if they are already born of the Spirit, but this is not actually the case. We have been born of water, we are born a natural body, we will be born again as a spiritual body. We'll see this as we proceed through. Unless one is born of a spiritual body, one is unable to see the kingdom of Elohim. That which has been born of the flesh is flesh, and that which has been born of the Spirit is spirit. Do not marvel that I said to you, you have to be born from above. The wind blows where it wishes, and you hear the sound of it, but do not know where the wind comes from, where it comes from, and where it goes. So is everyone who has been born of the Spirit. Nicodemus answered and said to him, How is it possible for this to take place? Yeshua answered and said to him, Are you the teacher of Israel and do not know this? So, if Yeshua was talking about some new doctrine that mainstream Christianity would begin to teach, why would he be saying to Nicodemus, Are you the teacher of Israel and you do not know this? What Yeshua is talking about is something that this man should have already known, and that is of the resurrection. We see in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 40 says, And there are heavenly bodies and earthly bodies, but the esteem of the heavenly is truly one, and the esteem of the earthly is another. One esteem of the sun, and another esteem of the moon, and another esteem of the stars. For star differs from star in esteem. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. It is sown in disrespect, it is raised in esteem. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. And so it has been written, the first man, Adam, became a living soul, the last Adam, a life-giving spirit. The spiritual, however, was not the first, but the natural, and afterward the spiritual. The first man was of the earth, earthy, the second man is the master from heaven. As is the earthy, so also are those who are earthy, and as is the heavenly, so also are those who are heavenly. And as we have borne the likeness of the earthy, we shall also bear the likeness of the heavenly. And this I say, brothers, that flesh and blood is unable to inherit the kingdom of Elohim, neither does corruption inherit incorruption. So Paul there says exactly the same thing that Yeshua says to Nicodemus. He says that the natural body, the earthy, the flesh and blood is unable to inherit the kingdom of Elohim. That's what Yeshua says to Nicodemus, and says, you must be born again of the Spirit, which is what Paul is describing here, that we will be raised from the dead and we will have spiritual bodies, heavenly bodies, and they are the only ones that will be able to inherit the kingdom of Elohim. We must be born again of the Spirit, okay, not reborn according to the word, as Peter says. That must happen to us also. But what Yeshua is describing as being born again of the Spirit is different. He says geneo anathon in the Greek, which means born again. When Peter speaks of being reborn, he says anageneo, okay, which is reborn. born. Geneo being born. So it can either be geneo anathon, born again, or anageneo, reborn. And we must be reborn according to the word of Elohim, according to the Spirit. But what Yeshua is specifically saying to Nicodemus is that you must have a spiritual body to inherit the kingdom of Elohim. See, I speak a secret to you. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible has to put on incorruption, this mortal to put on immortality, in order to be able to inherit the kingdom of Elohim. We must be changed. We must have spiritual bodies. We must be born again, according to born again of the Spirit. We must have spiritual bodies. Verse 54 says, and when this corruptible is put on incorruption, and this mortal is put on immortality, then shall come to be the word that has been written, death is swallowed up in overcoming. The more full version of 2 Corinthians 5, verses 1 to 7 says, for we know that if the tent of our earthly house is destroyed, we have a building from Elohim, a house not made with hands, everlasting in the heavens. For indeed in this we groan, longing to put on our dwelling which is from heaven, so that having put it on, we shall not be found naked. For indeed we who are in this tent groan, being burdened, not because we wish to put it off, but to put on the other, so that what is to die might be swallowed up by life. Now he who has prepared us for the same purpose is Elohim, who has given us the Spirit as a pledge of what is to come. So we are reborn according to the word. He's given us his Spirit so that we will be reborn as a pledge of what is to come when we put on the body which is from Elohim, that which is from heaven. Therefore, being always of good courage, and knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Master, for we walk by belief, not sight. So that is what we believe is true, although we do not see that to be true in our everyday lives. That's what it is to believe in Yehovah. John 20 verse 19 says, when therefore it was evening on that day, the first day of the week, and when the doors were shut, where the disciples met, for fear of the Jews, Yeshua came and stood in the midst, and said to them, peace to you. So, if Yeshua is the first fruits of the resurrection, presumably he has a spiritual body. It's interesting that it specifies here in John. John specifies the disciple whom Yeshua loved, who lay upon Yeshua's breast at the Last Supper, that he would record for us that when the doors were shut, then Yeshua came and stood in their midst. Whether this tells us anything about Yeshua's spiritual body, I'm not entirely sure. We read something very similar to that in the book of Mark, or rather it is also strange what is written of Yeshua. It says, and after this he appeared in another form to two of them as they walked and went into a field. Okay, so this is when he appeared on the road to Emmaus. It says he appeared in another form. I don't know exactly what that means. We're not given any more information about this. All I can think to do is to tell you that this is what it says. John 5:24-29 says, truly, truly, I say to you, he who hears my word and believes in him who sent me possesses everlasting life, and does not come into judgment, but has passed from death into life. And just as we saw last time, that Sheol is sometimes used as kind of a term, as this is where the dead who have no hope go, as well as it also being where those who are delivered from Sheol go. But it's kind of used as a term for the punishment of the wicked going to Sheol, because the righteous will be raised from Sheol. We see here judgment is used in a very similar way. When it says he does not come into judgment, we're told almost sit before the judgment seat of Messiah. Coming into judgment here is used again to speak of those who will suffer the second death, coming into judgment in a bad way, those who will be judged wicked. So he who hears me and believes in him who sent me possesses everlasting life, does not come into judgment, will not be under the power of Sheol, will not suffer the second death, but has passed from death into life. Truly, truly, I say to you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of Elohim, and those having heard shall live. For as the Father possesses life in himself, so he gave also to the Son to possess life in himself. And he has given him authority also to do judgment, because he is the son of Adam. Do not marvel at this, because the hour is coming in which all those in the tombs shall hear his voice, and shall come forth those who have done good to the resurrection of life, and those who have practiced evil matters to a resurrection of judgment. Okay, so some people will be judged to have been righteous, whether they're in the first resurrection or whether they're in the second resurrection. Some will be judged righteous. Others in the second resurrection will be judged to be wicked, and they will receive the second death, which is the death of the soul. Those who have, as John records here, who have practiced evil matters. Something to bear in mind is that all people are judged according to their works. Some, their belief is accounted to them as righteousness, but belief in Elohim existing is not the belief that the scriptures speak of. The scriptures speak of belief of his word. So if you believe Elohim's word, then you do the things that Elohim says are good. You can't claim to believe his word whilst also not doing the things he says are good and doing the things he says are bad, because otherwise you haven't believed what he has said. So all people are judged according to their works. Some people have the works of belief. Some people do good works, and some people have practiced evil matters. In Revelation 20:1-9 it says, "And I saw an angel coming down from the heaven, having the key to the pit of the deep, and a great chain in his hand." And if the pit of the deep is unfamiliar to you, then check out the first video in the Life After Death series. "And he seized the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. So this is what happens when the angel comes down, having the key to the pit of the deep, or the bottomless pit. He seizes Satan and he binds him for 1,000 years. And he threw him into the pit of the deep and shut him up and set a seal on him, so that he should lead the nations no more astray until the 1,000 years were ended. And after that, he has to be released for a little while." So remember that Satan cannot lead the nations astray when he is in the bottomless pit, only when he is released after the 1,000 years have ended. And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was given to them, and the souls of those who had been beheaded, because of the witness they bore to Yeshua, and because of the word of Elohim, those who will not worship the image of the beast, and who did not worship the beast nor his image, and they did not receive his mark upon their foreheads or upon their hands, and they lived and reigned with Messiah for 1,000 years. That's the first resurrection. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended, and we'll see those. It says, this is the first resurrection. Blessed and set apart is the one having part in the first resurrection. The second death possesses no authority over these, but they shall be priests of Elohim and of Messiah, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And to be a priest of Elohim can be a confusing idea for people, because we're used to priests in churches and man-made systems of priests, or we're used to the priests who used to serve in the tabernacle or in the temple and offer offerings to Elohim. But a priest, all it is one who kahans. Okay, priests in Hebrew is kohanim, and that means ones who do the verb to kahan. And to kahan is to represent a third party according to their word. So that is what it means when it says they will be priests of Elohim and of Messiah, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. So those who take part in the first resurrection, they will actually reign with Messiah. And we'll see when we get to looking at the kingdom how there is the kingdom for the people of the nation Israel, and there is the kingdom for the rest of the nations. The other nations are there also. So those who take part in the first resurrection will rule and reign with Messiah in the kingdom over those nations. Now, it says here that Satan, does not lead the nations astray until the 1,000 years have ended. And I want you to bear that in mind as we read through Daniel 11. It says, when the 1,000 years have ended, Satan shall be released from his prison, and he shall go out to lead the nations astray, which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. Okay, so they're gathered together for battle around the beloved city, as we will see, around Jerusalem. Verse 9 says, and came up over the breadth of the earth, and surrounded the camp of the set-apart ones in the beloved city, and fire came down from Elohim out of heaven, and consumed them. And this is after the 1,000 years have ended, when they come to the beloved city, and they besiege it, all the nations of the earth. Bear that in mind as we read now Daniel 11. It says, at the time of the end, the king of the south shall push at him, and the king of the north rush against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter the lands, and shall overflow, and pass over, and shall enter the splendid land, and many shall stumble. Okay, so the entering of the splendid land, surrounding of the beloved city, the camp of the set-apart ones, people being led astray again, all of this happens after the 1,000 years. But these escape from his hand, Edom and Moab, and the chief of the sons of Ammon. And he shall stretch out his hand against the lands, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. And he shall rule over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the riches of Mitzrayim, and Libyans and Cushites shall be at his steps. Then reports from the east and the north shall disturb him, and he shall go out with great wrath to destroy, and put many under the ban. And he shall pitch the tents of his palace between the seas and the splendid set apart mountain. Okay, so again, this is all happening after the 1,000 years. But shall come to his end with none to help him. This is when fire comes down from Elohim. And it says, now at that time, after the 1,000 years, Michael shall stand up, the great head who is standing over the sons of your people. And there shall be a time of distress, such as never was since there was a nation, until that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. Note that everyone who is found written in the book will be delivered. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth wake up, some to everlasting life, some to reproaches, everlasting abhorrence. And those who have insight shall shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. So when it says those who sleep in the dust, some shall arise to everlasting life, some to everlasting abhorrence. It says at that time, after the 1,000 years, this is going to happen. So after the 1,000 years, as we continue to read in Revelation 20, we're going to see this resurrection mentioned, when some will wake up to everlasting life and some to everlasting abhorrence. And it mentioned the people being delivered who are written in the book. This is exactly what we read of in Revelation 20. Revelation 20, 10-15 says, and the devil who led them astray was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet are. That's the first and second beast. And they shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. And I saw a great white throne, and him who was sitting on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before the throne, and books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged from what was written in the books according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Sheol gave up the dead who were in them. And they were judged, each one according to his works. So this is what is spoken of in Daniel 12, where it says, some will rise to everlasting life, some to everlasting abhorrence. And it is those who are found written in the book, as it says in Daniel 12, will be delivered. Exactly the same as we're reading about here. And the people are judged at this point according to their work. So they're not the people who were in the first resurrection. Blessed are those people, because they will rule and reign with Messiah for 1,000 years. But after that 1,000 years, there's another resurrection of the dead, when people are then judged according to their works. First resurrection, just those who believe in Yeshua. Second resurrection, all of the rest, and they're judged according to their works, according to what was written in the books. And death and Sheol were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And if anyone was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. So in that second resurrection, those who are found written in the book of life, who are judged according to their works, will be raised to everlasting life. The rest will be cast into the lake of fire, those not written in the book of life. Later in Daniel 12 it says, and he said, go, Daniel, for the words are hidden and sealed till the time of the end. Often when people think of the time of the end, they think of what is kind of colloquially known, even among those who are secular, non-believers, as the end times. But that is not always what the scripture is referring to as the time of the end. The time of the end can be what is described as in the latter days, okay, after the 1,000 years. And he said, go, Daniel, for the words are hidden and sealed till the time of the end. Many shall be cleansed and made white and refined, but the wrong shall do wrong, and none of the wrong shall understand, but those who have insight shall understand. And from the time that which is continual is taken away, and the abomination that lays waste is set up, is 1,290 days. And I'm not going to get into the interpretation of such prophecies here. If you just take the themes that the righteous do well, are found clean before him, those who are wicked are punished and go away into everlasting abhorrence, that is enough to understand. Blessed is he who is waiting earnestly and comes to the 1,000. But you go your way till the end and rest and arise to your lot at the end of days. And what each of our lot will be judged by Elohim.